Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the workshop at the Board of County Commissioners. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First off on our agenda today is the Kroger National Opioid Settlement. Mr. MacLaren and Mr. Anderson, what do you have for us?
Yeah, so what has happened is there has been a settlement reached with the Kroger company. It's similar to the previous settlement that we reached with the opioid companies for damages related to the epidemic and such. Counties have an opportunity to join this lawsuit and participate in these, I guess not the lawsuit itself, but the settlement, join in the settlement. And by doing so, we get a lump of the settlement, and then we forfeit our rights to any future cases. This is a resolution that I drew up authorizing us to, or authorizing me to sign a release to participate in the global opioid settlement with Kroger. I think that it makes total sense to participate in this. If you guys will remember, we're part of the Southwest Opioid Response District, SWORD, and so whatever we receive will go into that pot, and then that's divvied up by the SWORD committee. And so, pretty straightforward. Again, this money's out here. I think counties have until the 12th to join in on this lawsuit, and so, or join in the settlement, and so. My recommendation, at least from a legal standpoint, is we do that. I mean, obviously, we're not going to go out and sue these companies individually, and that would be a legal nightmare anyway because of the settlement that's already been reached. One of the things I did with this resolution, certainly, we can do it differently, but what I did is it's basically authorizing me to sign this release to participate, and then any other future documents that pertain to the settlement. I don't have to necessarily be the authorized signatory, but my experience is with these kind of legal documents, sometimes it's easier to just have me sign. And I mean, obviously everything carries out the will of the board, which is to participate. I'm not even sure that we're going to have a lot of other documents to sign, but if they do come along, and certainly I would run them through the board before we sign anything. But yeah, that's what.
So I don't have any issues or concerns with that, but my question is, if this settlement is agreed upon, is it going to be like the last one over the 19 or 20 years, and it was extremely very little amount of money? I'm sure that's probably how it's set up.
Yeah, so I don't have a lot of familiarity with the numbers piece and how much it's going to be. I mean, just based on my experience working with our last settlement, it was not a lot of money. That's why we decided to form SWORD, because we received so little that, I mean, it really wasn't enough to move the needle. And so the idea was we would combine with all of the stakeholders to put that money in a pot and actually get something out of it. And so, I don't know dollars and cents. Do you have a sense, Travis?
No, it's just a settlement, and
So
what we get is what we get.
Yeah.
So, I don't think it's going to be
Significant.
a government changing amount of money. I mean, I think it's going to be a fairly low sum. I mean, yeah.
Okay. That was all
Wasn't
I
it
had.
$19,000 a year? Over
20 years.
20 years.
Yeah, it was very little.
Yeah, it was very little.
I mean, I think the big frustration last time was, I mean, even when we pooled all of the money together that all of the local governments received across several counties, it still wasn't enough to even really think about putting in an inpatient facility, which was somewhat discouraging when you think about the litigation and the allegations in the litigation and the opioid epidemic that we are experiencing. To get so little to take care of an issue that's now permeating our community and other communities around the state, it's disappointing it's so little, but it is what it is.
Okay. Any other question?
I don't
No.
have any.
All right. Very good. Thank you, Ian. We will address this tomorrow for sure. All right. Next up, Director Locke. we're gonna talk about some kind of transportation. Be it secure.
Yes, secure transportation for behavioral health vehicles. Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, so this permit and licensure is for Access Health Systems. And they are applying, they have 4 separate vehicles. These vehicles are located out of this county, but because they provide the behavioral health transportation in our county, they need to do the permitting and licensure. They have already paid us their fees. They've paid us $800 total. It was $400 for the license, which is a 3-year license, and $100 each for the permits, times 4 is $400. So for a total of $800, we already received the payment for it. It took a couple weeks to get that accurate as far as who they were paying, but we got that. And then as I was going through the paperwork this morning, as one last ditch review, we kind of postponed coming on the agenda. So unfortunately, as we look through this together, the insurance expired on July 1 of 2024 for all the vehicles. Each vehicle says July 1st. So I shot him an email this morning because we technically were going to be on here sooner than this. And so anyway, due to multiple delays, we're here now. So I'm hopeful that we can still proceed with this, and I will get an updated.
COI.
Huh?
A COI,
Y-
certificate of
Yes,
insurance.
Yes.
Sorry.
So for each vehicle. So as we walk through the packet, you'll see that the date on there is July 1st, 2024 expiration. So, and Rodney Brenner's who I've been dealing with, and he's pretty efficient. So unless he's on vacation, I did not get that an email bounce back. So I'm assuming he's working, I'm sure, and he's probably listening right now. So he's probably going to send it to me shortly, all 4 copies. So anyway, I would advocate on their behalf that we can still proceed with this and approve everything with tomorrow's date. Otherwise, I have to redo everything. So,
I guess what I would suggest, if you guys do want to move forward with this tomorrow, you can just make a motion to approve these licenses contingent on the receipt of a valid insurance card for the next year, whatever period of time.
And they're
That's
part
probably
of a
the,
fleet, so I'm sure we're gonna have it.
yeah.
We probably will have it by the end of the day tomorrow.
I would be surprised if I didn't.
Yeah,
have it.
I don't think it's,
Okay. I just wanted to point that out because it literally jumped out at me like 30 minutes ago and I sent him an email. So anyway, because when I reviewed it multiple times, because this actually took quite a long time because there's 4 vehicles, 4 VINs, matching everything up. Anyway, I looked at it over and over and over again, thinking we were going to have it done before it expired, but we didn't get it done. So anyway, so I just thought we could just walk through it's quite a lot of papers, but the first one would just be the application for secure transportation, and it's, got Rodney's name on it, and then Jordan Fletcher is the manager of secure transportation for Access, and it tells you on page 3 all the different areas that they serve, multiple counties, including Montezuma County. So Rodney is my point of contact for this application. And then there is the application for the vehicle permits. So there's one sheet that lists that they're all type 2 non-partitioned vehicles. Again, it's got Rodney Brenner's name, and then you'll see there is the vehicle information. I don't know if we need to walk through every piece of it, but that Chevy Tahoe, that VIN number matches the insurance card that is behind that, and you'll see the expiration dates on there, July 1. The next one is a 2015 Explorer with that VIN number and the insurance card behind it. So, and there's 2 more vehicles after that. I tried to keep these as organized and together as possible so it was easy to see the flow. So those are their 4 vehicles that they're seeking permitting for. The next group of attachments were the Secure Transportation Certificate of Motor Vehicle Mechanical Evaluation, which was done by Durango Motor. Again, these vehicles are located in La Plata County. So that is who did their vehicle evaluation, mechanical evaluation, and then their different staff personnel did the actual vehicle inspection report for each of those vehicles, which is normally what I do here. But because the vehicles are over there, they did it. Okay? Any questions on that? Those? Okay. Then the last attachment, well, next to last, is the staffing roster of all of the folks that work on, that drive all those vehicles. Okay? And then we have the actual secure transportation service license that will need to be signed, and the clerk sign, and then she will attach a license number and the license fee of $400, and then we have the permit that follows, and there's 4 permits, 1 for each vehicle. Okay, and I dated all of these documents for the 6th of August, which would be tomorrow when you would sign them, and the permits will be good until 2025. The license is good for 3 years. So, and I think that's it. Any questions?
So these are housed in La Plata County?
Yes.
And
Yes.
do they come over here and
Yes.
get patients? or-
Yes.
Yeah,
That's why they're, initially, when this first came into statute, we were under the impression that secure transportation only pertained to those vehicles that were starting in our county, but that's not the case. It's any vehicle that's providing secure transportation for behavioral health needs that comes into our county as well. So that's why Access had to apply for the 4 vehicles that they launched them out of La Plata, but then they used them over here.
Yeah, looking at that, it showed all 5 of our counties plus San Juan County.
Yeah, so they have to actually get license and permits in every county that they serve. So, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well, yeah.
Okay,
This is a secure transport permit.
correct.
What makes these secure?
That mechanical evaluation and an inspection form where it goes over, well, you can have it partitioned or non-partitioned,
Well, if they're
meaning a
not
barrier.
petitioned, what makes them keep the patient from reaching up there and grabbing the driver?
Well, that's,
The person in the back?
there are 2 people
Right,
on the
well-
rig. That would be up to them to determine whether it's going to be partitioned or not. That's not our role.
Right.
Our role is simply to inspect the vehicle, and if it is partitioned or not, they have to delegate which one it is. I have not had a partitioned vehicle yet. Our CIP vehicle is not partitioned. So, and that's the only vehicle we've done. So, yeah, all those things had to be checked off. Kind of like ambulance, they have a check-off list too, and the licensing process, but they all have different things that they have to have in place. So, and I'm assuming that the state regulatory authorities are who set those up. I don't know. So, have any more questions?
No, a lot of thoughts where this could really go. But this is the guy who can answer those, so.
Well, so, I mean, from a legal standpoint, the laws contemplate being able to license partitioned and
Right.
non-partitioned vehicles.
Right.
And so what we're looking at is whether the vehicles are adequate to safely provide transport, and then we license. As far as what sort of
Where does the
issues-
liability?
The liability will not lie with us.
Okay.
I'm not at all concerned about us issuing a license to operate one of these vehicles and then something happening on the vehicles and us getting into trouble. Ultimately, Axis is the owner of these vehicles. They're the ones that deal with staffing on the vehicles. They're the ones that decide who to transport in the vehicles. And so, to the extent that something happens, Axis is going to be the one that's going to be liable. Now, that doesn't mean that we can't get named in a lawsuit It doesn't mean that we would not get named in a lawsuit. I mean, I think that there's a world where we could certainly be named in a lawsuit because we license these vehicles.
Right.
But we're not warranting that these vehicles are fit for certain types of people or not fit for certain types of people. We look at whether these are mechanically sound and whether the entity doing business is fit to do this. And so, to that extent, we've done that, and yeah.
And that is why, because these vehicles are in La Plata County and they were certified mechanically by Durango Motor, I don't want to sign off on those. That's why Axis signed off on those, because I didn't look at them. I went out and looked at the CIP vehicle, and I knew what I was looking at. I had them explain things to me. I have never seen these vehicles, so.
I mean, really what the permitting system, as I see it, is meant to prevent is, a mom and pop operation driving a 76 Rambler that has a tire falling off it from going out and transporting patients from the ER to Pueblo. I mean, that's what this is about. That's what we're trying to prevent.
This is more of a safety inspection,
Yes.
really, is what it
yes,
is. And
yeah. Yeah.
it's not.
And I think, Ian, wasn't this sort of started as a COVID, the secure transportation for behavioral health, I think, came from a fallout from COVID.
I don't know the answer to that. I don't
I'm
know
pretty
where,
sure.
I recall that this legislation was new and that
Yes.
the licensing authority suddenly went to the counties.
Yes.
I'm not sure why or how. I don't
Yeah.
know if I ever
I think there was
knew.
just a lack of transportation availabilities, and they came up with this as just so, like Ian was saying, you don't get, a mom and pop transporting people with behavioral health needs, so, anyway.
I mean, I think that the conundrum that the county runs into is, if you absolutely want to eliminate any sort of liability, then don't license any of these things, ever.
Yeah.
But then what happens when you have a behavioral health crisis and somebody needs transport? What do? Well, they're going to be sitting down in the hospital because there's nobody to transport them. Or our law enforcement officers are going to be tasked with trying to transport them, and that's staff time and resources there that the county's not getting reimbursed for, and you've got officers that are transporting to Pueblo when they could be on the streets here taking care of stuff. So this is not absolutely fail-safe, but again, I'm not particularly worried about the liability, given that, we've got a reputable dealer that's checked off that these vehicles are mechanically sound and sufficient, and that's kind of where we end.
Yeah, is all I see is this is nothing more than a safety inspection of the vehicle, and that's it. It's not. It's nothing. And the safety of this vehicle can change in 30 days.
Yeah.
So
Right.
there's
It's a
no
point-in-time
anything-
inspection, right? It's
Yeah.
at that moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a snapshot of that
Right.
time, and that's it. So,
Yeah.
pretty simple.
I'm done.
Yeah. So when I get those 4 current insurance cards, I
COIs.
will, yes, I will send them, forward them on, and make sure that Kim has them also as for all the documentation.
So my
So-
my recommendation for tomorrow's meeting, if you guys decide to move forward with this, is to authorize Chairman Candelaria to sign these permits contingent on the receipt or after the receipt of these insurance cards, because we don't want to sign these permits until we have proof that the vehicles are fully insured.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure you'll have them by tomorrow morning.
I'll be surprised. if
Pretty,
I don't.
it's pretty quick and easy to get them.
Yeah. Okay. And since you all have it electronically, I don't need to leave any of my paper copies for the license and permits, right? Okay.
No,
Thank you.
not unless you want to just leave them for Kim. But once we sign it, you'll get them back electronically anyway.
And I included her in my email with all of the attachments so that she had the originals, so, okay,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Roth, GIS update, proposed map changes. We talked about this, a couple couple weeks ago anyway, maybe a month or so ago. So we did have some questions, and I think you're going to answer them all for us.
Yeah, a couple of things that we're going to talk about. One of them spoke with a couple of landowners on a couple roads that we did have some good questions on. For the first one, it was this section, well, it's basically a 1/10 of a mile section of Road X east of Road 16. I spoke with the property owner on the south side of that road, and again, the proposal is to turn that back to that exact section back to green from red. That section had been shown on the county road map for a very long period of time, from 1937 really into our first GIS road map in the early 2000s. So this would be changing it back to the way it had been shown there for 60, 70 years. So this is a section line road, and when I spoke with the Olivers on the south side of the road there, they confirmed that that section of road, including the section line going all the way further east, is used on a daily basis by property owners, by the public, and by workers going in there, accessing that road. So it seems to confirm the fact that it is used by the public as a right-of-way. It is a section line road. So we have not, there's evidence to say that there might be a public right-of-way further east there, but we have not adopted or accepted anything. Turning it green does not mean that we have to maintain it. It's still up to the road superintendent what level of maintenance needs to occur on this road. So the question was, I guess, to the commissioners, do we want to go ahead and change this back to green? Do we want to abandon it? Or what map change should we present here?
So just so I'm clear, the historic maps note the road as it appears here.
As
on
it
this
appears
diagram we're
that
looking
small
at.
section, not a larger section going. We have never made a claim on any section further past. Why it stops there, I don't know.
So I mean, I think from a legal standpoint, I would feel pretty good about claiming what's depicted here as a county road. Now, if you wanted to go on and note this as a county road all the way to the section line, conceivably you could do that. I think there would probably be a question as to historic use and who used it, when they used it. Was it just landowners down there? Was the road ever fenced? I mean, there's a whole myriad of things you'd have to look at. I mean, as we've seen in the past, sometimes if we claim roads and we don't have a real foundational or real good evidence, that's always dangerous. So I think to right here, I think we're very
Nobody's
safe.
petitioned us to
Yeah.
do it any further. This
Yeah,
is simply essentially a map correction to back the way
Yeah.
that
But
it had been in
nobody's,
the past.
so what's the difference if we leave it red? It's still saying that it's a road, and it's used by the public, or can be used by the public.
Well, there was
Well,
on the previous road maps, there's a distinction, and the distinctions, well, they certainly were made when we created the red and green road system.
Yep.
And it had been depicted in the legend of road maps as a county road in those past road maps. So, red roads means we're not really making a claim. Green is we are making a claim.
So I
as a county
think,
road.
I think the difference is if it's a red road, then conceivably we're not making any claim to it. So, the Olivers here could conceivably put up a gate right at the intersection of Road 16 and block that off right there. Now, whether they would be able to stand on that and prove that up, that this is in fact a county road or a public right-of-way going through, I don't know. I don't have all the facts. But
If somebody, for instance, from a GIS perspective, if somebody put in a house further to the east there in a farm field and they needed an address down there, we would probably extend that road as a red road down to the section line. It may or may not be a public right-of-way, it's a section line road, that would be yet to
Yeah.
be determined. And then at some time, landowners surrounding there could make a petition to the road department that we want this to be a county road and we want gravel and maintenance, at which point that would be brought before the board to then make that determination that it is now adopted as part of the green road system. This section really was previously inferred to be adopted as part of the main county road system.
Here's my thought from a legal perspective. Right now, we have very clear evidence that we've got a green road to here. We don't gain anything by abandoning this or claiming that it's not a county road. We don't lose anything by showing it as a road map, on the road map as a county road to there. We lose nothing.
Correct.
So, I think just in the little bit of time I've been here, I think anytime you've got a solid right-of-way, whatever that right-of-way looks like, and you've got plenty of evidence to prove it up, keep it. Because it doesn't mean you have to do anything to it, you don't have to maintain it, you don't have to do anything, but you've got it. So why give it up?
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
saying give it up. I don't think that was ever a proposal, was to give it up. Was it?
Well, I think,
Yeah, no,
I think denoting it as a
I don't
red
think so.
road would be, I don't know that that would be giving it up, but it would certainly cast question as to whether we were making a claim as to a right-of-way there.
And that there may be a distinction in that I know that the Olivers knew that it was maintained by the county at some point. Then that stopped happening. They weren't sure why. And, they requested some maintenance. So I don't think the county's going to go do maintenance on what would be a red road. So that would kind of end that conversation. If it remains red, then the road superintendent's not going to go expend money on it.
But we don't necessarily have to expend money just because it's a green road.
Correct, absolutely. But you won't, you probably won't if it's
Yeah.
not.
Well, if it's a red road, we're not making a claim that there's a county right-of-way there.
Yeah.
So,
So that leads into this road. Ian led this in. And this one's kind of a unique one as well. I have no idea why this road ever got put on the road map, but it is pretty clear from the 1967 road map to the early 2000s that this was shown as a county road. I went out and spoke with the property owner, Mr. Cron, and he's an older gentleman, and he basically had no idea that this was ever shown as a county road. He had lived out there. I think he lived there for 40 years. When I plot out the property description of his property, the road is entirely on his property. It's a 40-foot strip of land that extends from his house straight up to County Road N. It's fenced on either side. There are no farm accesses to the properties on the east or the west for access. Why was shown on a county road, I have no idea.
So it goes back to the private drive situation.
It's a private, that this would be vertically, and I haven't researched who lived there in 1967, but
What's his address?
his address is off of Road N, and there
Okay.
is no road sign for 16.75.
Okay.
So that's why, from a cleanup effort, it's, for 911, you don't want to depict something on a map that basically,
Doesn't
it's not
exist.
signed, it doesn't exist, there's nothing addressed off of it. He was a nice gentleman. He said, I don't have a problem if somebody else uses my driveway to access their fields, but there's not really I don't know. Again, it's not an issue. It's a map cleanup
Right.
issue, but we're in the situation where it was clearly shown, and we can either do nothing and just leave it as red. We can change it to green, or we can abandon it and remove it from the map.
What was his preference, did he say?
I didn't really present those exact options to him.
Okay.
I mean, if we decide to abandon it, he will be notified in the mail, and I have his phone number. But he didn't seem to know that it was a,
so this
the
is,
other two residents, which are obviously off of County Road N to the east and the west,
right.
and then he's to the south, but who owns the other piece of property that's not hash marked? Is there access? How do you get access to that piece of property?
The one there in the red?
Yeah, well, good question, but even if that was a 60-foot county right-of-way, it still wouldn't provide access over.
No, I'm just.
Yeah, good
I
question.
see that, I'm just asking, how does
I-
that person get to that piece of property?
Right, we don't want to landlock.
If he's not using that road?
We'd have to zoom out a bit and figure out whose property that is. That's an excellent question. But we can certainly look at that.
I'm not sure how they access that.
It looks like something.
Even this piece of property here.
No. This is part of this one. It's just not hash marked. I don't know. Or it's a separate piece of property.
Is it, is it separate or is it part of it?
I guess we could.
So is
Right
it
there.
separate, the rectangle?
We'd have to take a look at the county
Right
GIS real
there,
quick.
where Travis has a cursor?
Yeah.
What, is that separate? Because the blue line and the hash marks stop.
Yeah, this is Mr. Cron's property, then there's those two.
So how do we access that piece of property? And how do we access the one to the southwest?
See that small?
That one up there.
Well, down here,
And then this one.
right, straight up from that end, what looks like a structure in that red hash mark.
Oh. I believe it's a common property owner between the north and south there.
Okay.
So, so technically they do, cross the north part to access their south part, the common, they own both properties in there now. What would be landlocked in that parcel, I don't know, it still seems to be touching the county road and right of way at the corner there.
And then that little rectangle where he had that cursor, how do you access that?
Do you have the county GIS bookmark there,
I'm
Travis?
pulling it up right now, sir.
That piece comes off from Railroad 17.
There you go.
Yeah.
Isn't that where Ames comes? Kind of weird.
And that's way out west.
Oh, no, it wouldn't be. If it's at 16, yeah, it would be way west.
It's way west. Goodman Point.
In the wrong area. It would be Goodman Point.
This is the piece that we're talking
Oh, so you could get to here, from here, but still, how do you get to here?
How would you get, who owns this piece?
I still got 2 miles to go.
Rick and Kelly Oliver.
I guess my concern is how do you, the
It's
piece of
this-
parcel that's up right now,
Yeah, but
how do you access it? Because there's no other way to access it.
I guess the only concern, yeah, would be if there's some kind of an easement across that, the piece to the east. I mean, because the 16.75
That's
comes
Rick and
there.
Kelly's house,
Yeah, off of End Road.
yep, right here.
Yeah.
So, and they own this piece. I thought they owned this piece too. Do they not own that?
Can you go up here, Travis, to the top and see who?
Right there?
Yeah.
So
see,
own
they
this
own
one
that too.
Okay.
So it's connected to it,
But it's two separate parcels.
yeah.
Hmm.
'Cause they have that part across the road too.
Yeah. So then 17, you could access.
Yeah.
You could access it off 17. And it looks like in that lower part of 17, there
Yeah,
is.
'cause that road goes crazy.
Yeah.
Once it goes on out there. As you get clear out to this,
Yeah, it doesn't follow any section lines at all.
oh no, it just cuts
It
out
just
across
cuts
there.
across everybody's.
'Cause these people have got,
So what was your recommendation,
What the hell that is?
Doug? To, I kind of thought
Well,
you
that's as
started
much as I
with to
could.
eliminate it, but
For
Something.
map cleanup purposes, I'd like to get it cleaned up. but-
There and leave it.
If we just want to leave it the way it is, that's fine, but there's some precedent that historically it had been shown as a green road. I have no idea why.
So I guess here's what you run into. If you leave it just as it is right now, then it'll stay depicted on the map as it's depicted right now. And say 20 years from now, you get a different board in here, a different landowner down there, and then all of a sudden there's a dispute as to what the road is. And I think it's conceivable that you could end up with a green road through there because of the fact that it appeared on the road map for a long period of time. Maybe there was evidence that the public used it. So if you want to be sure that this landowner at this point has his own private drive along 16.75, then abandon it to the extent that we have a right-of-way there. Then we've got documentation forever that that's a private driveway.
You know, my tendency is you never abandon a public right-of-way, you just hold on to it, right? And that's kind of what
Well,
Ian
or,
was saying before.
yeah, or you just stick it as a red road right now and just let it lie.
which
I mean,
is what
is it red
it's what
right
it is.
now?
It's red.
It is shown as red, but again, this is one of those things, this disconnect, because back in the 95 roadmap, which was the first roadmap before we got them the GIS roadmaps. The GIS roadmaps did not necessarily consider all the historic context. So,
You may have a hard time proving up in court that this is a green road. If I filed an action for a declaratory judgment, yeah, we've got the road maps, and that certainly is evidence that's favorable to us that there was a county road there. But I don't think the inquiry would end right at the road map, because you might get this landowner saying, hey, I've lived down there for a bunch of time, and the guy that owned their place before me lived down there, and that was just a private drive.
I
I
mean-
mean, I don't know that this is a green road.
Mr. Cron said, oh, it's my private driveway, you know,
Well-
it is, for 40 years I've lived here, and that's what his
I mean, I think the reality of it is, at this point, we don't know what it is.
Well, and it doesn't go to public land, so, you know, where,
I mean, this sits as it sits. It's a red road that was green. I think if you leave it depicted as a red road right now, that's probably the most accurate depiction of what it is. There's a road that's on the ground there. I mean, I don't know that we have enough to prove up that it's a green road. I think if you just I think if you just take a road map into court that shows that something's a green road, I don't think that gets you there. That with some other evidence will get you there. I mean, it's a piece of the puzzle, but it's not. And Doug and I have had that conversation before. I mean, and we maybe feel a little differently, but I don't think it's the whole puzzle. I don't think the road map's the whole puzzle.
So
But-
your recommendation, Doug, was to clean it up, and by cleaning it up, you mean
you'd have to send out notice of abandonment, right? Or not, or just,
I mean, I think you can leave it as a red
Yeah, why-
road right now, and
why
that
don't we
just
just-
leaves it as
just
fine.
leave
a
it
red
as it
road.
is?
I'm fine with that.
Or if you wanna really clean it up and make sure that the county's never gonna have a right of way there or any claim to a right of way there, then abandon it. I mean, that's the do-all, end-all.
I'm fine with anything, I just, you know, sometimes it's like, you know, and we do have red roads that are essentially private driveways, we discussed that, we don't know the status of it. It's left in an ambiguous state, and yet there's no road sign. It's on the road map, but there's no road sign, and there's nobody addressed off of it. But knowing the way things go, we'll get some permits for some new homes off of that road here in a couple years,
Yes.
guaranteed. If we remove it, we'll get those applications.
Yeah.
I mean, look,
Oh, yeah.
This little chunk here, you could get them off of 16.75.
Look at this area over here.
Well, exactly, not to say that there will be, but that's not to say that there won't be. I think we just leave it alone.
It's fine with me.
I mean, I'm
Fine
just
with-
speaking out loud, we're not making decisions.
We will not
but-
propose it as a map change, and we'll leave it the way it is, and I'll just make a note that we had this discussion, and, yeah, that's totally fine with me.
Okay.
So the next one, we can just go to the last page there. Travis. So basically, this In meeting with the landowner here, we have some issues with some bike trails and access to proper access to public lands with the landowner there. So we've kind of come up with a plan to add some more signage for those two trailheads that are up Road 39 there towards Mancus and this aqueduct trail system. So we're going to add, we were out there this morning, and there's that small parking lot was pretty full, the one that spans the town of Mancus and the BLM property there. That one is already full, but there's no indication that there's the main parking lot further. So we're going to add a sign saying, essentially, part of the problem is that I think people start to park in the county road right away there, and they need to be directed to the main parking lot. So they need to know that the main parking lot is another 1.5 miles. So that's one sign. Then we're going to have a sign there at where 39 turns north there to make sure that people know where to go. We did add that private drive sign. Part of the discussion is the property owner thinking that J.85 added to the problem having that as a named road. But we added the private drive sign there. And then also at that road J.85, we can add a sign that directs people saying, with an arrow saying, go another 1/2 mile to the main parking lot. We're also going to be adding a private property sign up there where part of the problem is it's an aqueduct swath. So people think that it looks like a road, it looks like a path or something. So we're going to add some official signage, BLM looking signage up there at that interface there so that they know not to trespass on the property, and we'll see how that goes. So.
Questions?
No.
I think the signage will really help, which is, again, part of that meeting that we had. So I think it's, hopefully we can resolve the issues that we're having up there.
Yeah, some good-looking, official-looking, heavy-duty kind of signage. I think James agreed to purchase some of that out of his budget. We'll get the BLM sign that people are used to seeing up there. So it's obviously heavily used. Monday morning, it was people already starting to go out there. So. And then the last item here on a different topic, we did have, so Dolores County had been using a map service provider out of Minneapolis or something like that, that provided their online mapping. They contacted us and said that their online provider was not going to be able to meet these new requirements, these ADA requirements, because it's based on an old kind of a CAD system, and wanted to know if we could assist them with some mapping services. So this opened up a bigger discussion, essentially, of actually, let me go back just really quickly to the previous. Do we want to set a time for a roadmap hearing, or do we need to wait for that, Ian? If we want to set something in the future, we can get that going. There's.
I mean, we could set it up. I think we just need some clarification, maybe tomorrow, as to what we're going to do with these things. Just so we could set the roadmap hearing and have a roadmap to present. I think we've got that.
Do we need to do something tomorrow, or can we just set a public hearing?
Let's just set a public hearing.
I think we can set it
I mean, I think
tomorrow.
we can't set the
through our
public hearing tomorrow.
discussion.
We've got a public notice, the public hearing, and.
Right.
Oh, you got a public, well, we can't have the public hearing.
Yeah,
tomorrow.
no.
But can we set a date for it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that needs to be published for 2 consecutive weeks prior to the date of the hearing.
That's my recollection. I don't have the statute in front of me. I can get with you afterwards.
I
I'm
have
pretty
it.
sure that's what it is.
I have it in front of
Yeah,
me right now.
Perfect.
It's 2 consecutive weeks.
Okay.
So,
We've already talked to all of the owners and all of the properties that are
yeah,
being
so we have a
presented,
proposal.
so.
So if we wanted to do that, potentially, I'm just thinking, so we don't have to come back to you, I just forgot that piece. Then potentially we could do, the August 27th, or public hearing.
That seems like a good day to me. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, as long as it meets the requirements of the publication.
Or we could go September 3rd to give us another week, just
Give us another week.
another
Go to
week. So September 3rd?
Yep,
Just put a calendar,
that way we have plenty of time.
calendar up, throw a dart at it.
Okay, so.
Did that answer all your questions as
yeah,
far as
we'll-
direction?
We'll set that and we'll get an exact time and then we'll get it published. Yep, sounds good. September 3rd.
And Doug, I'll get a resolution together
Okay.
in
just based on
anticipation of
last
that
one's.
meeting.
Great.
So, yep.
Good. So the way I wrote this, and this is just a draft discussion so that we can let Dolores County know where they need to move forward. So I know we have a lot of background about this as to why we would, I guess, assist Dolores County in storing mapping data and providing these mapping services to them. And so I'm sort of presenting this, when I used this draft, there was an agreement. This was back in 2009 that was done between the towns of Memphis and Dolores, and Fort Lewis College was going to come in and help them get their GIS systems set up. And they recognized that time that they would need help with some data storage at that time. So it was brought before the commissioners that the towns of Memphis and Dolores entered into an MOU for said mapping data and storage and services. So at this time, those are the only two entities that are technically covered under that 2009 MOU. You know, fast forward 15 years, and the reality is that the county, as I'll put it, the highest entity within our PSAP region, already stores and hosts the data relevant to 911 operations for both counties and all municipalities, including Dove Creek and Rico and the city of Cortez. So, you know, I spoke with Jim McLean about what he thought about the computing resources that this took. He had no issue with continuing to do that. In some sense, we already do it out of necessity, both because we compile the data as a unified data set for the dispatch center, and also because we also serve up online maps, emergency services maps, so that that entire area is covered in an emergency for our responders. So really what this outline does is it adds the other entities into this agreement. I did not specifically call out the town of Dove Creek or the town of Rico, because they're sort of under the auspices. When we receive data from Dolores County, it is already included, so we're getting that at this time directly from Dolores County. I did also say that, you know, sometimes the agreement does include other public utility entities, because that is important also to show that sort of a data on our system. And probably more importantly, it does also kind of spell out who owns the data, who's responsible for the data, who's responsible for, just because we store the data doesn't mean that we're responsible for the core request.
Well, and that's interesting. I think that if we've got the data on our servers, I think that it's quite possible that data would be subject to a core request. And I think that this idea that these regional partners could request that the data remain private, or that portions of the data remain private, I'm a little worried. I think that if we're storing the data on our servers and we get a public records request under CORA for that data, I'm not sure that ownership of the data necessarily matters, because we're storing the records. We're in essence the custodian of the records. And so all this looks good, except maybe for that little piece.
And I mean, a little, as a caveat, I mean, I would like the entities to both remain ownership and retain the responsibility for updating the
Yeah.
data. That's what we can't do. You know, Town of Dolores gives us a copy, City of Cortez gives us a copy of their parcel data, you know, and then we merge it with the Assessor's County records. That's kind of what makes it useful. In the case of, you know, Empire Electric, we certainly want those power lines and stuff on our emergency services maps for
Yep.
response, and yet we have an agreement that we don't publish that on a publicly available website. We keep that for internal use, for planning use, so just because we.
So just because we don't
National security data.
Mhm. So if we start to get into, okay, if it has to be public, then Empire Electric's has to be taken off our servers, and then planning.
Well, I
doesn't
think
happen.
again, it comes down to the nature of the record and is, you know, releasing that record going to be a security threat, or is there some other reason that we can't release the record? And I think that, you know, I don't know a lot about the power line stuff, Commissioner, but I can think there's probably some good reasons not to release that.
Right.
But I guess my point is, if we're housing the records, whatever the records might be, and we get a core request for the records, we're going to need to respond to the core request. Doesn't necessarily mean that we have to release the data. It just means that what's releasable under CORA, we're going to have to release. Does that make sense?
As part of that process, but that doesn't mean that they can then share that data publicly because of their core request, right?
Well, I think it,
The very nature of a CORA, you know, Colorado Open Records Act, I mean,
Right,
they are able to share that data.
but then they're not putting it on a free-for-all website to just distribute freely without controls.
I don't know enough about the files or the nature of the files or whether there's proprietary information in the files. You know, I mean, CORA obviously has a lot of exceptions that you can use to not release records that you hold. Now, whether GIS data fits within any of those exceptions, I'm not sure. And it probably depends on the nature of the data, what it's depicting. I mean, there might be some stuff that you don't have to release, and there might be a portion of the data that you would have to release.
You know, and we do, I mean, having an MOU of some sorts is better than nothing. I mean, we do have our point number 4 in here, all public records requests for GIS data shall be made directly to the regional partner who will retain full ownership of their own data.
And I mean, I think that's all well and good, but that doesn't necessarily align with CORA, because we've got the records. And so, I mean, we can have an
Or
MOU.
we have a copy of the records.
Yep.
They're supposed to have,
But
each
we're,
entity is supposed to have their
but
copy.
but
and
we maintain the records here.
They're maintaining it, though.
Well, I don't know.
it's all
I mean, if
like-
it's on our server, I think there's a good argument to be made that it's our record, or that we're keeping the records. I mean, we just,
So let me just, I'm going to be real simple here. This MOU was a 2009 MOU, and the reason it's in front of us today is to update it. Is that correct?
Is
Or to
updated
talk
to,
about updating it.
correct.
I'm going to look at history. Have we ever had any issues with this at all? I mean, we can.
I don't think we've had any
This is storing
issues.
of Data it's GIS data. I'm not sure.
I would probably recommend removing paragraph 4 and paragraph 5. Or no, paragraph 4.
Were these added, Doug, or is this just?
Yeah, that was
This
my
is just the way it
modification.
was.
Paragraph 4.
This is not just the way it
Paragraph
was.
4 is probably the paragraph that I would recommend removing.
It fits the same style, but I added some
Yeah.
things. to
That's
it.
listen, from a practical standpoint, I understand the language. In a world without statutory obligations, it makes perfect sense. I mean, practically speaking. But my concern is if we have this in here, and then all of a sudden we get a core request, now we've got an MOU that's obligating us to do one thing, and Cora that's obligating us to do a different thing, and we're going to be stuck in between. And we don't want to do that.
Okay. Clear as mud.
Well,
Well,
I
I
mean,
mean-
no, if it's not clear, I mean, I'm happy to explain it.
No, I mean, I just don't, I get your concern, but,
I mean, if we've got an
I
MOU
don't-
saying we're gonna keep this stuff private, and then we get a Cora request saying, hey, we want these records,
right.
and Cora mandates us to release the records. Well, as soon as we release the records, we're violating this MOU. Or vice versa, if we don't release the records, then we're violating Cora.
Okay.
And I added that last time because I looked at some of the previous notes, and Mike Green, who at the time was the attorney for Cortez, made a comment, what about Cora, question mark? So, but.
Yeah, I don't know what that means, but.
So why don't
I'm not
you,
gonna, I'm not gonna,
We're in the same
I'm
place
not
right
gonna try
now.
to theorize.
Doug, bring this back when you've had a conversation with Ian, clean it up. If 4 needs to be stricken,
I mean, we could, honestly, I'm comfortable with everything in this except for 4. So if we want to strike 4, I mean, you guys could sign this tomorrow as far as I'm concerned, if you want to do this.
Well, and when would the other entities sign and agree that this MOU, before the commissioners sign, right?
Well, you could do it either way, yeah. So, I
Okay.
mean, you probably want to get their agreement first, since they're the ones that are going to be storing the data. with
Exactly,
us.
they might have
Yeah,
their own
yeah,
comments.
yeah,
Obviously,
exactly.
they have their own legal
Yep.
counsel,
so
but,
strike 4, and then go from there.
and then the only other thing under 7 is, would there be an intent to charge for said storage and hosting these mapping services? Jim McLean said, not a problem, the server that you have is sufficient, And our intent, again, it's supposed to leave our own county staff time to just do what we do. A lot of this data storage and collection and compiling is already covered under what we do under E911 services to begin with. We don't want to necessarily be the technical assistance or making maps we don't want to be obligated to making maps and spending county time unless we have that capability. So, I did put in there technical assistance may be billed at $80 an hour, just in case there is something that comes up that's a special project that they say, cool, that's going to take a couple days, we'll pay that bill and we'll help you out because that's a one-off deal. Usually these things just run in the background. But are the commissioners okay with not charging each entity on an annual rate for these general data storage things? I think it might get a little bit complicated.
The
Just
general storage, yeah, I think it's fine.
Okay.
Just do it the way we've been doing it. It's not really hampering us one way or another.
It's not.
If they go to start, technical assistance that may be billed, that's kind of a different.
Yeah.
That's just covering staff time if you have to do stuff for them.
Right. Yeah.
So,
So.
I mean, that
Okay,
makes
and
sense to me.
that's the way it's been done, that's the way it's been working, and the only thing that would be hampering is if we had to stop kind of doing operations the way that we already do, so. But it's up to these entities, if they say, I didn't know the data was on your server, pull it off, then so be it. It won't be part of the partnership.
Okay, very good.
All right, thanks.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, Robert Dobry, come up. We're gonna have one more item on our agenda, 2024 Gaming Impact Grant. We have a grant application submission form. Take it away.
Yes, this is an application submission form for the 2024 Gaming Impact Grant. The way the Gaming Impact Grant works is it's based on your gaming-related calls from the previous year. Thanks to Lori Johnson from Cortez Dispatch and Sheriff Nowlin for providing me the data to be able to kind of parse through what are gaming-related calls. But we have 758 gaming-related calls, and a cost per call of $221.12 after taking out calls related to the jail, since that's connected to a separate budget. For a total gaming impact of $167,606.61. And I'm still trying to potentially track down some additional costs through the DA's office and through cases that would have worked through the court system. If we can capture any of those, I'll include those as well in the application. There's 29 potential cases from that data, so I'm working with the DA's office to see if we can quantify any additional cost there. And then we'd also like to ask for an additional $50,000 for the community intervention program. There's a section of this grant for the innovative projects, and it was suggested by our DOLA representative that we include that. So the total amount would be $217,000, $217,606.61.
So out of that, again, the 50,000 would be for CIP and the other 167, whatever.
167,606.61 is based on
Would be back.
on the number of calls and cost per call.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if there's any, if I can identify and quantify any additional cost, I'll include those as well.
All right.
Any other questions?
No?
Okay.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Robert. Okay, and with that, unless you guys have anything else, we have come to the end of our agenda. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all.